Pardon me, Senator Thompson.
Mr. Johnson, whether or not one agrees with your statement, I think you gave a very thoughtful statement, thought-provoking as to what you perceive to be going on in the country and the concerns. You mentioned the problems, as you say, with our government. You talk about the tax rates being too high. You talk about government being too big, too intrusive, and all those things, many of which many of us are also concerned about and are trying to do something about it. You talked about the British, our revolution, other places around the world. But, you know, we couldn't vote King George out of office. The difference between us and other countries is that we do have a democratic society, and one in which huge numbers of people don't even bother to vote. But we have an opportunity to change just about all the things that you listed that's a problem. I take it that you think that our system is broken down, our electoral process in some way is broken down. Either it's really not free and open, or maybe we shouldn't go by democratic processes, or what's your problem with working through the process to solve these problems?
You know, there was an organization, I believe, came out back in September and said that the militia's aim was clearly the democratic process itself. And my response to that was that our aim was, our target was right on target, right around November the 8th, when a whole new Congress came in here. Fine, granted. Now, we advocate that more than everything, voting. But we seem to have a problem here during these campaigns when all of these wonderful politicians, God love them, say whatever they're going to say, and they get inside the Beltway and everything is, how do we say, politics as usual. Now, what's going on as this trend continues, and you guys got to listen to this, you're pushing people's backs against the wall out there. We got people out there hungry, like you're talking about, people out there starving, and people tired of getting terrorized by law enforcement. Well, I shouldn't say law enforcement. I will support law enforcement whenever they support the law. I'll just call them enforcement. They're getting outright economically terrorized, socially terrorized. I mean, the political correctness is getting out of hand. That is why these people are, what they're doing, what this militia is now, it's a mindset. It's the civil rights movement of the 90s. It's people sitting there with "Don't tread on me" stamped across their forehead. There's people drawing a line in their sand. That's what it is. Nobody's going to go out there and shoot things. Nobody's going to go out there and blow up things. We're not baby killers. We're baby boomers. We're not terrorists. We're taxpayers. We're not extremists. We're just extremely ticked off at the way the government is deviating away from what's going on around here. And when I say we, as this militia, as this little covert group out there, no, it's everybody. Now, just because you say we're going to form ourselves a militia, it doesn't make you the militia. What we stand for here is a constitution. That's it.
All right, let me follow up on that a little bit.
We'll be disregarding the lights. Senator Thompson may proceed as he wishes.
Thank you. I take it then basically you think the system doesn't work, that the problems that you see are not really being addressed, that politicians promise one thing and deliver another. You're not the first one to come up with that idea, I assure you. It's
becoming a real general consensus around the country, sir.
And you basically believe that today that exists the way it always has.
What exists?
That situation exists.
No, I didn't say it always has. But today it is becoming more and more evident that it is existing.
I see. What do you see the role of the militia in addressing that problem?
Right now, the militia, I look at it as a constitutional safety net. What you have are these groups who are organizing themselves in a manner that the Constitution will be preserved, no matter what kind of action this government or any other government takes. That's the little friction point you're going to run into there.
Well, that gets into another question, I suppose. Bad laws are one thing, high taxes and that sort of thing. But when you talk about a militia, you don't organize a militia to lower taxes, I assume. You organize a militia that at least has some military capability. Is there concern that the government is forcefully and physically going to move against individuals who are trying to assert their constitutional rights?
You bet.
Is that the basis of the militia movement?
That is not the basis of the militia movement, but that is a concern right now.
Would you elaborate on that?
Sure. One of the things that was mentioned here earlier, I think Senator Specter mentioned it. He said, were the militias a threat to the federal government? And I says, gee, you walk outside of 495 and the question's the other way around. Is the government a threat to the militia? The militia is everybody. It's just a law in which people form themselves a group to self-defense and for their security. Okay? It's not to wage war. But if a war is waged, these groups plan on winning. And let me tell you something else. Speaking of this, you're saying, should this be looked into? It's a mindset. I was at a gun range earlier this year, and they happened to be firing machine guns that they owned lawfully. And we have people, I'm talking law enforcement, I'm talking military, we have a lot of sympathetic people in those branches who all were down there with their firearms and with the awesome display of firepower that I saw down there, and that was just one iota of it. Okay? I say this sincerely, I don't mean to direct this at anybody here, but a lot of people see what's coming down. They see some of the executive orders that are being thrown at them, some of the statements that are being made directed toward the American public.
What form do you think is most likely for this warfare to be launched against the people?
In what form?
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned instances, obviously, where that you're very much concerned about the Waco incident and things of that nature, but do you see something on a more organized basis or a more pervasive basis in terms of what the government might do to the citizens?
Right. It isn't just about Waco and Ruby Ridge. When you hear things about, there was a survey out in 29 Palms, California, in which military officers were asked, if necessary, would they shoot on Americans who refuse to give up their firearms. In any other country, that constitutes a serious threat. Military is not to be used with law enforcement. And there are certain inalienable rights people just aren't going to give up. This is the problem we face here. Even if you say, hey, this is a real bad idea, these guys are a bad idea, and we ought to go just stomp their heads in, you got a problem because they're going to shoot back. And I can tell when those other officers were up here, it was a serious concern. Even though, hey, we all want to preserve our constitutional rights, okay? If there's nuts out there, heck, we'll probably find them before you do and turn them over to you. But as far as the mainstream approach of this thing, and when we hear about some of the plans or ideas that they would like to see happen to us, okay, now I have seen them take place. For instance, I'm talking about Brunswick, Ohio. We had one gentleman who got his door knocked on. He said, no, go back and get a warrant. It's under the Constitution. Get a warrant, get probable cause. Okay, the result was he kicked his door in 7 times. So this person with a legally owned weapon shot him. She said it was a police officer. If a police officer kicks down my door with no warrant, no probable cause, what am I supposed to do?
Incidents like that have happened throughout the course of history. Will continue to happen.
The result.
My question is: do you perceive and are you concerned about a more organized, more pervasive effort by the government against individuals or groups or whoever, in what form it might take? Could I ask Mr. Adams that question, or maybe somebody else?
Yeah, I would like to respond to a few of